Mary Pilon, The Monopolists, Obsession, Fury, and the Scandal Behind the World's Favorite Board Game. Embark on a fascinating journey into the hidden history and unsolved mysteries surrounding the world's favorite board game, Monopoly. In Mary Pilon's riveting book, The Monopolists, you'll discover the untold story behind Charles Darrow's alleged rags-to-riches invention, and the role of Elizabeth Magie's landlord's game in creating the monopoly we know today. Delve into the political ideas of economist Henry George that inspired Magie's game and learn about the long-lasting impact of the fight between economics professor Ralph Anspach, creator of Anti-Monopoly, and corporate giant Parker Brothers over the trademarked game. Prepare to explore the remarkable evolution of Monopoly and unravel the enduring power of corporate monopolies in the 21st century.
Monopoly's true origin story. The origin story of the beloved board game Monopoly is shrouded in myth. The widely accepted tale is that Charles Darrow, the game's inventor, created the game during the Great Depression and went from rags to riches after Parker Brothers bought the game from him. However, this story is a fabrication, and Darrow was never the game's inventor. Instead, he learned how to play the game from friends and then redesigned it. The true origin story of Monopoly lies in the concept of game stealing. Parker Brothers was struggling as a company and needed to protect their game's concepts, including Monopoly. To ensure complete control of the game, they pushed the notion that Darrow was the inventor, creating a rags-to-riches narrative that helped the game's popularity grow. By diving into the history of Monopoly, we can learn about the game's true origins and why Parker Brothers lied about its creation. The origins of Monopoly. Monopoly wouldn't exist without Elizabeth Magie's landlord's game, which contained similarities and unique characteristics that inspired the modern classic. The game was created in 1904 and was based on the political beliefs of Henry George, advocating for fees on land use instead of income tax. The game's players could either compete for property monopolies or profit together by paying the same fee. Although the landlord's game was not a major success commercially, Magie wanted to spread George's ideas. Despite criticism, she continued to produce the game and updated her patent in 1923. Interestingly, the game took on a life of its own and became popular on the East Coast of the United States without Magie's knowledge. The evolution of Monopoly. The game of Monopoly has seen a long history of evolution driven by player communities and collaboration. The modified version of the original game was popularized by Upton Sinclair, and players added their streets and neighborhoods to the board to mirror reality. The game was intended to warn against monopolies and was used in universities as a teaching aid. The final adjustments to the game were made by Daniel Lehman, who added chance cards and miniature houses based on Ukrainian models, and called it finance. Despite Monopoly's popularity, he was unable to make money from his new version, and eventually sold the rights for just $200. The Shrouded story of Monopoly's copyright. In 1933, Charles Darrow received a copyright for Monopoly, but it's unclear what the patent covered as the original documents are lost. Parker Brothers had to secure a further copyright to acquire the rights for the entire game and patented the official rules in just 1 month in 1935, which still remains a mystery. The company also suspiciously bought the rights of similar games and paid another developer to keep his game out of the market. Parker Brothers tried purchasing earlier versions of the game and bought Elizabeth Magie's patent for the landlord's game to cover up the truth. Even though some players claimed that Parker Brothers and Darrow had stolen Monopoly, their claims were ignored, and the real story only came to light years later. The battle between Monopoly and Anti-Monopoly. Monopoly, one of the most popular board games of all time, was criticized in the 1970s by an economics professor, Ralph Anspach, for promoting values of greed and selfishness. Anspach created an alternative version of the game called Anti-Monopoly, which encouraged players to share resources and break up monopolies. Anspach decided to produce the game himself, and it became an instant hit. However, Parker Brothers, the original manufacturer of Monopoly, sent Anspach a cease and desist letter. Anspach refused to back down and a court date was set. In preparation for the court date, Anspach uncovered the unsavory details of Monopoly's checkered past. Ultimately, anti-monopoly was allowed to be sold, and it continued to gain popularity. The battle between monopoly and anti-monopoly highlighted the public's increasing distrust of power, especially after the Watergate scandal. The battle against monopoly. Ralph Anspach's journey to prove that monopoly was beyond copyright. Anspach discovered that the term monopoly was generic, and that a woman named Lizzie Meiji was the inventor of monopoly before Parker Brothers and Darrow got a hold of it. He gathered interviews and evidence, hoping to win the court case, but failed. David versus Goliath. Anspach refused to back down against Parker Brothers despite offered a significant amount of money and the opportunity to become an executive if he had handed over his game. After Anspach uncovered Parker Brothers' deceitful activities, the company offered him a whopping sum of $500,000 in damages plus a position as an executive if he resolved the case, but Anspach declined the offer. He believed that a word in common usage cannot be under copyright law and stood by his principle. As a result, the case went to trial, which favored Parker Brothers' evidence that the anti-monopoly game had breached the company's trademark. Additionally, Anspach's lawyer opted out and prevented him from paying the fees midway in the case, further damaging Anspach's case. The judge also heavily sided with the big business, ensuring Parker Brothers' victory against Anspach. Subsequently, the judge ordered Anspach to surrender all remaining copies of Anti-Monopoly to Parker Brothers for destruction. Despite monumental losses suffered by Anspach, he still sought an appeal. Anspach vs. Parker Brothers case is a classic story of David vs. Goliath, where a small business challenged and stood up against a significant corporation. The monopoly name dispute. Anspach and Parker Brothers went to court to decide the rights to the monopoly trademark. Anspach argued that monopoly was generic and had become popular because of its name, not Parker Brothers. The Supreme Court agreed with Anspach, and Parker Brothers had to pay him compensation. This decision brought a significant change in trademark laws as people could challenge any product's trademark if they could prove that it was only the name that mattered, not the brand. However, the interest in Anspach's game had waned, and Parker Brothers had already established monopoly as their trademark. This dispute over trademarks has continued, with other terms like elevator being ruled out as generic, while brands like Coke and Teflon retained their trademark rights. Even though Anspach's legal fight revealed the true history of monopoly, the game's official timeline on the Parker Brothers website does not reflect the complete picture.
In this intriguing tale of Monopoly's creation, The Monopolists by Mary Pilon unveils a complex origin story dispelling the widely circulated, rags to riches mythology of Charles Darrow. From Elizabeth Meiji's Landlord's Game, inspired by political ideas of Henry George, to the long line of players who adapted and customized the game over the years, Monopoly's true history is a fascinating tale of deception and collaboration. Waged in courtrooms and ignited by Ralph Anspach's fight against corporate monopolies, the battle for monopoly shapes our understanding of intellectual property, challenging us to question the role of corporate giants and the ownership of popular culture. As you journey through the captivating history of this iconic board game, remember that the real fight lies in the struggle to preserve history and truth, even in the face of powerful opposition.